His new book, Bracketology, March Madness, College Basketball, and the Creation of a National Obsession is available now wherever books are sold. I guess it's tax season, if you will, for this man, in a way. It's Bracketology's own Joe Lunardi from the worldwide leader in sports. How are you, Joe?
Rich, it's great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. So do you have like a board up on the wall, like if anybody's ever seen Homeland or anything like that? It looks like that, where you got conspiracy theories on the wall and it's all attached by string. I mean, how do you figure this whole thing out right now, Joe? What's your life like right now?
Well, I don't put red X's through, undesirables.
Very good.
What you mean.
Very good. I like it.
But I might put green circles around desirables.
Okay.
Look, my job, and a lot of people still don't maybe get this, isn't to put teams in or out or project teams in or out as if I were giving you my opinion. Because there's 100 people, 1,000 people on TV who are more than willing to do that, and they're very good at it. My job is to say what those 10 people are going to do in the committee room, given the results and the teams and the set of circumstances that's facing them right now today as they're going over everybody's resume. And that's a little bit more of a technical thing, and a lot of fans don't like that, but I think it's important to shine a light on that process, if only because, Rich, and you remember way back in the day, this was generally not the most transparent thing in the world.
Yes.
And a lot of players and coaches and media and ADs and conference people would just kind of walk away scratching their head.
So, Joe Lunardi here on the Rich Eisen Show. A first for you, a first for everybody, with this bubble community that's being built in Indianapolis is what I assume is happening with Virginia right now. One of the teams out of the ACC that would expect to be in the dance next week. Now out of the ACC tournament, they have to test negative for 7 straight days, which would be in time for March Madness that is going to begin on a Friday after the first 4, if you will. So what do you think the committee will think about this? I mean, how do you factor all this in with what's going on with Virginia, Joe?
Yeah, I'd like to say that there's some precedent here,
Right.
but of course there isn't. And I think, just from a counting standpoint, Virginia could also be given a first-round pairing that plays on Saturday.
Right.
Either Friday or Saturday. I mean, I suppose, taking it to an extreme, they could play the last of the 32 first-round games at, 10 o'clock Saturday night a week from now, or a week and a day from now, and that would give, what is the defending champion from the last time we had a tournament.
Right.
Right. The greatest opportunity to, test their way back into playing. But as I understand it, they have to make that commitment to the NCAA. There's a deadline, and I don't know whether, at what point does the NCAA go to one of its 4 kind of standby teams who are going to be identified on Selection Sunday as well. Nobody's talking, either from the Virginia side or the NCAA side, because they probably didn't think about the scenario quite this way. I'm reminded of the year where there was a tornado at the SEC tournament, and games were canceled at the Georgia Dome, and the University of Georgia ended up playing a quarterfinal and a semifinal in the same day. One at Georgia Tech, one back at the Dome, and eventually then on Sunday won the automatic bid. Like, talk about taking it down to the wire. I don't think we're going to know about Virginia on Selection Sunday. At least there's a possibility that we won't.
And before we get into seeds and teams, first team in, last team out, and all that, last team in, first team out sort of stuff. I mean, things are different for this tournament, where the first round, the round of 64 and the round of 32 is going to be a Friday and a Saturday, and then the second round is going to be a Sunday and then a Monday, and then the Sweet 16's a Saturday and a Sunday. right? I mean, so
Yep.
So it's going to really go. It's going to go Friday through Monday first weekend, and then second Sweet 16 is going to be a Saturday and Sunday, like I guess we're used to. The Elite Eight's going to be a Monday and a Tuesday, so things are a little bit different. But what do you mean for those who might not know that there's going to be, I guess in case of COVID, break glass, 4 teams that have a bubble, I guess, popped, but they're hoping for a pandemic chance? Is that literally what's going to happen here?
Yes.
Joe?
Several years ago, the NCAA, actually as part of an antitrust litigation, became the controller of the NIT as well. And so the NIT committee is basically given its 4 number 1 seeds by the teams identified by the NCAA committee as the first 4 out. So those first 4 out will be, if they choose, kind of on standby, and they can be added to the NCAA field as late as the Wednesday before the first 4 begins next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
First 4 begins next Thursday, the full bracket next Friday. Like you, Rich, I'm confused by the new calendar.
No, sure.
But, our body clocks have been set this way for, since 1985.
Right,
so,
which is what your book's about,
forgive
too.
us.
Yes.
And let's say Virginia decides to go or the NCAA agrees that they can go, but then something else happens between Selection Sunday night and Wednesday, and Virginia has to opt out, then the first team on the contingency list is going to go in Virginia's spot regardless of seed. Because they're not going to redo the whole bracket the night before teams are supposed to start playing.
So somebody that's not on par of the caliber of Virginia might get Virginia's seed spot, essentially, is
correct.
What you're saying.
And take it to an extreme. Somebody could get, team number 69 could get Gonzaga's spot. Right?
Right.
Realistically, what more could they do? It's better than a forfeit or a no contest or a walkover, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Nobody said this was going to be perfect. Nobody said it was going to be fair. And, it was a year ago today that they canceled the whole tournament.
Right.
So, I'm trying to look at the cup as half full.
Joe Lunardi here on the Rich Eisen Show. He's got a new book called Bracketology, March Madness, College Basketball, and the Creation of a National Obsession. Where all books are sold, you can get it, and we'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about the here and now, if you don't mind, Joe. Your top overall is Gonzaga, as you just referenced right there. Who are your 1 seeds? Does my alma mater have to win to get a 1 seed? Because it looks like you've got 2 Big Ten teams in his 1 seeds right now as we're talking here.
Yeah, Michigan is playing right now. Illinois will play later. They're the number 3 overall and the number 4 overall. And Rich, I think it's extremely unlikely that the number 1 seeds change at this point. And it's mostly coincidence that cut line is right at 4. Right? Like, in a given year, we might have 2 or 3 teams, maybe even 5 or 6 that are kind of separated from the rest. And we fight about the 1 seed, right? But this year it happens to be 4, and maybe that's just a little bit of the gift from the basketball gods, who've been a little cruel. And, in this case, maybe the order could change, Michigan and Illinois, but, I think they're all but locked, with, of course, Baylor and Gonzaga as 1 and 2.
Okay, so then who's already played their way in, whether how they finished the regular season or just the mere smattering of games we've seen conference-wide, and who needs to play well this weekend, today and this weekend, in order to assure themselves of a spot? Joe?
If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have told you there was next to no chance that Syracuse was going to be in the NCAA tournament. But here they are, and they're going to make it. They're just going to make it, but there's almost no set of circumstances now where, 7 or 8 things would have to go wrong which would be like pulling a quarter out of your pocket and trying to flip heads 8 times in a row.
Okay.
Right? Like that's pretty hard. And we'd wait a while if you and I each took a coin out and tried that now. Plus, it wouldn't make for great broadcasting, I suppose. But Syracuse got hot at the end. They beat Clemson and Carolina at home in the regular season. They won a 50-50 game against NC State to open the ACC tournament, and then they took Virginia to the wire yesterday. That was only yesterday, and now Virginia's out, and Syracuse is still at least alive for the committee, if not in the bracket in Greensboro. And we've seen this movie before where Boeheim makes it in late and is not just a thorn in team side. In 2016, I had them as team number 69. They got in and went to the Final Four.
They sure did.
And needless to say, I have not been welcomed back to Central New York since then.
Okay, so then who needs to play well to get in? Just throw some out at me.
I'll give you a classic elimination game, and it rarely falls this perfectly. But at midnight tonight, midnight Eastern in the Mountain West, the last 2 teams in the field on our board, which are Colorado State and Utah State, are playing in the Mountain West quarterfinals. They split in the regular season, conveniently enough, and now they're going to play the rubber game. And, it makes the most sense to me to leave the winner in and the loser goes home. So for those 2 teams, the NCAA tournament starts at midnight.
Joe Lunardi here on the Rich Eisen Show, and your last 4 in: Drake, Colorado State, Syracuse, Utah State. Why is Ole Miss, St. Louis, Boise State, and Seton Hall the last 4 out right now? Joe.
I mean, we're talking almost invisible distinctions here. St. Louis being the most unusual case because, A, they've been done for a week because the Atlantic 10 tournament was played a week earlier in order to give its teams some wiggle room if they had a Virginia-type situation. So credit the A-10 leadership for that. Bit of clairvoyance, if you will. And St. Louis also had the longest pause in college basketball this year. They didn't play a game for 42 days. They didn't play from before Christmas until the day before the Super Bowl. They only got 10 league games in. But before all that, they beat NC State. They beat LSU. They beat St. Bonaventure, which is the number 1 seed in their own league. And they have, some pretty decent computer ratings. Not great, but good enough. Yet, it's very hard to evaluate a team that played a third fewer games than anyone else. But now, as teams kind of fall by the wayside here, either on the court for those reasons or for off-the-court pandemic reasons, all of a sudden, things are looking up there in St. Louis.
So before I let you go, Joe, what do you want people to know about your book? Because obviously they know you, they know your love for the sport, they know your intensity and respect your knowledge for such a crucial moment as putting the brackets together that we're going to have our hands on this weekend, which is a national obsession. We have not, we actually went a year without. So perfect timing for your book and for us to get back into this passion of bracketology. Joe?
Thanks, Rich. I to be honest, I've been approached before about maybe doing a book, and I was always reluctant because, frankly, I didn't think anybody would be interested in a book about me. I'm not really interested in a book about me.
Come on, Joe.
But I was convinced, and I had a great co-author in David Smale out of Kansas City. I was convinced that it wouldn't be about me. It would be about this fun and this crazed passion that people have even before the tournament starts, right? About who's in and who's out and why and where. And like when we grew up, Rich, it was a hot stove league for baseball, right? And now this is the hot stove water cooler for college basketball. And it's just remarkable that it has taken off the way that it has. I never could have predicted it. I didn't predict it. There was no plan. I'm not that smart. And this book kind of tells that story hopefully in a way in which we take the content seriously without, Lord, taking me seriously, because, I certainly don't deserve it.
What's the best story you've heard about somebody who finished last in a tournament and the punishment that they received? What's the best story you've heard of such a thing, Joe?
Well, I once finished last in my own house. I lost to a Cocker Spaniel.
Say what?
Honest to goodness. Like, with when my girls were little and we'd do the old family pool, and,
Yep.
They decided to enter one for the dog. He picked all the teams with dog nicknames against all the cats. And UConn beats Kentucky to win it all, and I finished behind the stinking dog. Like, this actually happened. And I'm supposed to be the expert.
So how often do dogs finish better than cats in a bracket? Because, we're more dog people than cat people on the Rich Eisen Show here.
Well, that
treading
kind
into
of
very serious
information
water.
is classified, of course. And you have to come to the bracket bunker. Have to come to the bracket bunker to get it.
Got to read the book. Got to read the book. Bracketology, March Madness, college basketball, and the creation of a national obsession. Enjoy the busy weekend, Joe, and let's talk during the tournament. Let's see what your 2 cents are on the whole subject.
I would love that. Thanks for having me.
You got it. That is Joe Lunardi. Get it where all books are sold. How great is that? Dogs versus cats. Dogs beat the cats. Huskies beat Wildcats. Right there.
That was pretty funny.
There you go.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.